He pulled over a 73-year-old black woman on a quiet Georgia road, talked down to her, refused to check her ID, then nearly choked when she calmly handed him her Supreme Court credentials. Gloria Hemmings never liked driving at night, not since Marvin passed. Her eyes weren't as sharp anymore, and her reflexes, well, she wasn't in denial. But this stretch of road between Gray and Macon was familiar. It was quiet, winding through fields and patches of pine trees, just wide enough for 2 cars. She'd taken this route home from her sister-in-law's house for years. That Sunday evening, the sky was deep blue with the last blush of sun fading behind the trees. Her old Saturn sedan hummed along, smooth but tired, like her. The AC barely worked, so she cracked the window and let in the breeze. On the passenger seat sat a Tupperware container of leftover peach cobbler and a paper plate wrapped in foil. Her sister-in-law Bernice always packed her food to take home. "You getting too skinny," she'd said, nudging Gloria's arm. Gloria had smiled, politely. She hadn't had much of an appetite lately. Halfway through the drive, as she passed an empty church with a tilted sign, she noticed headlights behind her. Bright. Close. Too close. She checked the mirror. A sheriff's patrol SUV. Unmarked, but unmistakable. No sirens, just tracking her. Her hands gripped the wheel a little tighter. She tapped the brake. Maybe she was going too fast. She wasn't. 5 seconds later, the blue lights flicked on. She pulled over without hesitation, easing the car onto the gravel shoulder, tires crunching over dry weeds. Her signal clicked off as she shifted into park. Her heartbeat was steady, but her chest felt tight. She reached for her purse on the floorboard and placed it on her lap, both hands back on the wheel. She'd taught her grandson that. When they pull you over, don't argue. Don't reach fast. Keep your hands where they can see 'em. Be polite. Let them feel safe, even if you're the one who isn't. Now here she was. The officer didn't approach immediately. He sat in his vehicle for nearly a minute, door closed, lights flashing behind her. Gloria watched his silhouette through the mirror. Finally, he stepped out, tall, late 30s, maybe early 40s. White. Buzz cut. The kind of man who looked like he never smiled unless he had to. She rolled her window down halfway. He walked up slowly, left hand resting near his belt. "License and registration," he said, before even reaching her window. No greeting, no explanation. Gloria's voice was quiet, composed. "May I ask why I was pulled over, officer?" He leaned in slightly. "You swerved back there. You been drinking tonight, ma'am?" "No, sir," she replied. "I haven't had a drink in over 20 years. He raised an eyebrow, unconvinced. "You got any weapons or controlled substances in the vehicle?" Gloria blinked. No, he didn't move, didn't ask for her documents again. Just stared at her for a moment. "I'm going to need you to step out of the vehicle," he said flatly. She didn't move. "Am I being detained?" "Don't play games with me," he snapped, louder this time. "Out of the car!" She took a slow breath. "Officer, I have identification. I'd like to show it to you." He scoffed. "Later. Now step out." Her hand inched toward her purse. "Ma'am, don't reach!" His hand went to his holster. She froze. "I'm not reaching for anything. My ID is inside my purse. May I show it to you?" There was a pause. His chest rose and fell. "Keep your hands on the wheel," he barked. "You fit a description." She didn't ask what description. She'd heard that line before. Too many times. Gloria kept her eyes forward, hands still, lips pressed into a line. The wind picked up slightly, brushing a few strands of silver hair across her cheek. She didn't move them. Behind her, traffic was non-existent. Not a single car had passed since the lights went on, but this wasn't over yet. Not even close. Officer Brandon Kessler circled slowly around the car. He walked like a man looking for a reason to escalate, shoulders back, thumb resting too close to his holster, face unreadable except for that little knot between his brows. Gloria Hemmings watched him through the side mirror. She didn't flinch, didn't move a muscle. He stopped by the driver's side again. This time, he bent down and squinted through the half-open window. "You from around here?" he asked. "Yes," she answered. Born and raised in Georgia. You got an address that matches this vehicle? Yes, sir. I have the registration right here in the glove compartment, if you'd like me to— Not yet. He cut her off, standing upright. She could hear gravel crunching as he shifted his weight. He peered through the rear window, eyes scanning the back seat. Her quilted handbag, her cane resting across the floor mat, and 2 books of crossword puzzles sat neatly beside a folded cardigan. He asked again, Where are you coming from tonight? My sister-in-law's house in Grey. He cocked his head like he didn't believe her. Late for a Sunday visit, don't you think? She had dinner waiting for me, Gloria said softly. We hadn't seen each other in a while. He folded his arms. You sure you weren't somewhere else before that? I'm sure. Because you were swerving. You crossed the white line back there. Gloria didn't argue. She knew he wasn't interested in the truth, only a story he could control. Her eyes stayed forward. Pop the trunk, he ordered. She blinked. Excuse me? I said pop the trunk. Officer, is there probable cause for a search? His jaw twitched. That word, probable, landed differently. Something in his posture shifted. Not enough to retreat, just enough to raise suspicion. Suspicion that she knew what she was talking about. He didn't answer her question. Instead, he turned and began walking back toward his vehicle. Gloria exhaled, slow and steady. Her fingers flexed lightly around the wheel. She'd handled more pressure in one day on the bench than most folks could imagine. But this was different. She looked to the right. Still no cars. Just woods, shadows, and a long stretch of silence. Kessler returned, now holding a small flashlight. He shone it directly into her face. She winced and turned her head slightly. Don't move, he said. Just checking your eyes. I told you I haven't been drinking. He stepped back, slowly circling again. She could hear his boots scuffing against gravel. He was stalling, waiting for her to slip up, to twitch, to say the wrong thing. Then he spoke again. You travel with anybody? No. You ever been arrested, Mrs. Hemmings? No. You sure about that? Her lips tightened. I'm sure. There was something smug in his silence, like he thought he was unraveling a lie. But Gloria didn't move, didn't take the bait. He tapped the flashlight against the window edge. Tell you what, if you just give me permission to look inside, this whole thing could be quick. I don't consent to a search without cause, she said calmly. Kessler stared at her for a long moment. Then he laughed under his breath, dry and sharp. Well, well, somebody's been watching those legal shows. Gloria didn't blink. He leaned closer. You hiding something in there, ma'am? No. You always this difficult? She kept her voice even. I'm following the law. Kessler straightened up, jaw clenched, clearly annoyed. You know, most folks just cooperate. Makes things easier. Easier for who? She asked quietly. He didn't answer. He just stood there, exhaling loudly, fingers tapping the side of her door. The radio on his shoulder crackled. He ignored it. Then, without warning, he tried the door handle. It was locked. She didn't react. His expression turned. You locking me out now? I didn't unlock it in the first place. He stepped back, blinking like he was recalibrating the situation. The script he'd planned wasn't working. But Gloria hadn't said her last word. Not even close. Kessler turned and marched back to his cruiser. Gloria watched his silhouette through the rearview mirror. His movements were faster now, less composed. He was frustrated, maybe even rattled. But she knew better than to feel safe, because a man was rattled. Sometimes that only made them more dangerous. He opened his door and sat down. She couldn't see what he was doing, but his headlights still flooded her rear view. Bright, hot, blinding. She waited. Then he emerged again, this time holding something. A clipboard. But he didn't walk over to hand her a citation or ask for her documents. He stood a few feet from her car and started talking into his shoulder mic. She couldn't hear it clearly, but every now and then she caught phrases. Possible evasion. Refused search. Backup requested. Her fingers stiffened on the wheel. He was escalating. She hadn't raised her voice, hadn't moved an inch, hadn't refused to comply. But in his version of the story, she was already a problem. She glanced at the dashboard clock. 9:16 p.m. She looked at the road. Still no other cars. Not even a distant pair of headlights. He finally returned to her window. "You're being uncooperative," he said, voice sharp. "I haven't refused any lawful request," she replied. "You didn't exit the vehicle when I told you to. You haven't explained why I was pulled over. I don't have to explain everything to you," he snapped. "This isn't a courtroom." He regretted the words as soon as they left his mouth. Gloria saw it. A flicker of something, regret, maybe, crossed his face. But it vanished quickly. "I need you to get out of the car," he repeated. Gloria took a slow breath. "Are you placing me under arrest?" "You're being detained for questioning." "Under suspicion of what?" He hesitated. That pause said more than anything else he'd done tonight. "Step out of the vehicle," he repeated, dodging the question. Gloria looked at her purse, looked back at him. "May I take my bag with me?" No sudden moves. "I understand." Slowly she reached across her lap and opened the flap. She removed her ID case and tucked it into her coat pocket, then placed the bag back on the passenger seat. Her hand never left his view. She pushed open the door and stepped out. The air felt thicker now. Kessler motioned toward the front of her car. "Stand right there. Face the hood." She walked slowly, her cane forgotten inside the car. She didn't need it, but tonight it might have helped. Her knees were sore, but she kept her back straight. As she stood, hands folded gently in front of her, he circled her like a schoolboy trying to catch a lie in his teacher's voice. She didn't flinch, didn't speak. He walked to the driver's side and peered in through the open door. Then he opened the glove compartment without asking. Gloria turned her head sharply. "That's an illegal search," she said calmly. "I have cause." "No, officer, you don't." He looked at her, and for the first time since the stop began, his face betrayed something real. Doubt. Not fear. Not guilt. Just the quiet realization that this wasn't going the way he'd hoped. He shut the glove box and walked back over to her. "You got a problem with how I'm handling this?" She met his gaze. "Yes?" He raised an eyebrow. "Care to elaborate?" "No," she said. "But I think you'll understand soon." Something in her tone unsettled him. Not arrogance. Not defiance. Just certainty. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Who exactly are you?" Gloria pulled the ID case from her coat pocket and handed it to him without a word. Kessler took it with one hand, looked down, then looked again. His face lost its shape. He stared at the government badge, at the name engraved below it. Gloria M. Hemmings, Associate Justice, Supreme Court of the United States. His lips parted. No sound came out. But silence said everything. For a long moment, Officer Kessler just stood there, frozen, shoulders tense, ID still open in his palm. His eyes darted between the badge and Gloria's face, like he needed to confirm the truth twice. You're on the Supreme Court?" he finally asked, voice thinner than before. "I am," Gloria replied. Her voice wasn't smug. It wasn't angry. It didn't rise or fall for drama. It was calm, steady, and absolute, like the gavel she'd carried for decades. She didn't blink. Kessler cleared his throat and took half a step back. He was trying to recover, scrambling mentally for something. An apology, a defense, anything that might make this less humiliating. I didn't know who you were," he said quickly, voice now laced with something close to panic. Gloria tilted her head slightly. "Would it have made a difference if you did?" His mouth opened, then closed. He didn't answer. She didn't push him. She didn't need to. Kessler finally handed back the ID with both hands, suddenly aware of the gravity of each small movement. She returned it to her pocket, brushing the edge of her coat straight. I apologize," he muttered, avoiding eye contact. It was just a routine check." "No, it wasn't," Gloria said. Not loud, not cruel, just truth. Kessler exhaled, shifting his weight. His boots scuffed at the gravel again. "Look, I've been working a double, ma'am. Long day. Lots of calls. It's been—" "You've had a long day," she repeated, not as a question. Her expression didn't change. He stopped talking. The night had gone quiet around them. The trees swayed. Insects hummed in the dark somewhere beyond the ditch. And Kessler stood there blinking, unsure of what to do next. "You want to write me a citation?" Gloria asked. "If I truly swerved, you should." He shook his head quickly. No, that's not necessary." "Then I believe we're done here." She turned and took a step toward her car. He stepped forward. "Wait. Please. I didn't mean any harm." She paused and turned back to face him. "That's the problem, officer. You didn't mean anything. But your actions meant something." She didn't raise her voice, but every syllable felt anchored. "I wasn't afraid of you tonight. But someone else might have been. A younger woman. A teenager. My grandson. And that fear can ruin lives, even when you say you didn't mean it." Kessler stood there, throat tight, watching her. "You didn't see a judge. You saw someone you thought couldn't speak for herself. And you were wrong." He didn't respond. She didn't need him to. "I won't report this," she added. "Not because you deserve a pass, but because sometimes a lesson sticks better when no one else is watching." She opened the car door, but then paused again. "One day," she said, not looking back, "you'll remember this moment. I hope it makes you better." And with that, she got in, shut the door, buckled her seatbelt. Her hand rested on the gear shift for a second. Then she pulled back onto the road, steady and slow, tail lights disappearing down the stretch of cracked pavement. Kessler stood alone, arms limp at his sides. Not a single car had passed in all that time. He turned slowly toward his cruiser and sat down without turning the engine on. He didn't call it in, didn't write a report. He just sat there, windows rolled up, silence thick around him, face washed in blue and red light. And for the first time that night, he wasn't thinking about his shift, or his reputation, or his badge. He was thinking about her words. But the story didn't end with Gloria driving away. Not yet. Gloria Hemmings did not tell anyone what happened that night. Not the next morning over coffee, not when her niece called to ask about the cobbler, not even during her regular check-in with her law clerk on Monday afternoon. She just went about her business, read the paper, took a walk, wrote notes in the margins of a case brief she was reviewing. On the outside, it was just another quiet week in central Georgia, but something lingered. It wasn't fear. Gloria had been a federal judge for 22 years before her Supreme Court appointment. She'd seen enough darkness to know how to keep hers contained. No, what lingered was something else, something older, heavier. Disappointment. Not in him. She expected that. But in the fact that, even now, at her age, with all her credentials and decades of service, this still happened. That it could happen so casually, so quickly, without reason, and that if she were someone else, someone less composed or more fearful, it could have gone another way. That thought sat with her like a stone in her chest. On Wednesday, she received an envelope in the mail. No return address. Just a short handwritten note inside. It said, "I don't know how to make it right, but I heard you. I'm thinking about what you said." That was it. The handwriting was sloppy. The paper was cheap. But she knew who it was from. She folded the note once and placed it in the back of her Bible. Not because she forgave him. Not yet. But because she believed people could change, if they were willing to sit with their shame long enough to learn from it. She never responded. There was no need. Thursday evening, her pastor called and asked if she might be willing to speak at the end of service on Sunday. Just a few words. A story. Something real. She hesitated for a moment, then said yes. That Sunday, Gloria wore her blue church dress and pinned her mother's brooch near the collar. She didn't bring notes. She didn't tell her family she'd be speaking. She just waited until Reverend Colbert gestured toward the pulpit, and then she walked up, steady and slow, each step deliberate. The congregation was mostly older folks. Retired teachers, farmers, widows, a few young parents trying to keep their kids quiet on the pews. a crowd that knew her, but not all of her. When she reached the mic, she let the silence settle. "I want to share something that happened to me last week," she began. No drama, no anger, just her voice, low and even. "I was driving home late. I was pulled over by a deputy. People shifted in their seats. A few sat up straighter. I wasn't speeding. I wasn't swerving. I was just driving my late husband's old car, wearing this same coat." She paused, then continued. "The officer didn't ask for my ID. He asked if I had drugs, asked where I was coming from, ordered me to get out of the car." Gasps rippled through the room. "I kept calm. I kept my voice steady. And eventually I showed him my identification. She didn't say what it was. She didn't need to. What mattered most that night," she said, "wasn't that he recognized my title. It was what he assumed before he saw it." You could have heard a pin drop. There's a danger in how quickly we decide who someone is, based on nothing but a glance. And if we don't check that impulse, if we don't ask where it comes from, it can make us treat people in ways we don't even realize are cruel. She looked across the congregation. "I wasn't afraid that night, but many people would have been. Young people. Our sons. Our granddaughters." A woman in the third row wiped a tear. "And I didn't tell you this to stir up anger," Gloria said. "I told you because someone here might one day be in a position to speak up, or to stay calm, or to remember who someone truly is before they rush to judgment." She stepped back from the microphone. The church didn't erupt in applause. They stood, in silence, out of respect. But the impact didn't stay in that church. It reached further than she could have imagined. The following week, Gloria Hemmings's name wasn't in any headlines. No local journalist reported the story. No video surfaced online. The moment passed as quietly as it came. But the people who were in that church, they carried it with them like something folded in their pocket, light enough to keep, heavy enough to matter. After the service, a few church members came up to hug her. No long speeches, just tight embraces, hands held a few seconds longer than usual, eyes that spoke the words they couldn't quite find. By Tuesday, folks in Warner Robins were repeating her words, at salons, in classrooms, behind counters at gas stations. People didn't say her name every time. They just called it what the judge said, and everyone understood. But stories, even whispered ones, have strange ways of reaching people. That Thursday, across town, in a small yellow house with a creaky porch and a broken screen door, a teenage girl named Marley sat at the kitchen table doing homework. Her uncle, who worked as a part-time security guard at the county courthouse, came in and set down his keys. "You hear what that old lady said at the Baptist church Sunday?" he asked, grabbing a soda from the fridge. Marley shrugged. "No. What lady?" He didn't know her name. Some judge. Said a cop pulled her over last week. Didn't even know who she was, treated her like garbage. Then she showed him her ID. Man nearly fainted. Marley's eyes widened. "Wait, she's a judge?" "Supreme Court, real deal. Lives right here." She didn't say anything. Just sat still, pen hovering over her notebook. Something about that story rooted itself in her. That same night, miles away, Officer Brandon Kessler sat on the edge of his couch in the dark, TV flickering low in the background. His wife, Erica, was asleep upstairs. Their son's toy truck lay tipped over on the rug. The house was quiet. He hadn't told anyone what happened. Not the full story. He hadn't even mentioned the name on the ID to his supervisor. He didn't know why he kept it to himself. It wasn't out of fear. Not entirely. It was something deeper. A feeling he couldn't shake. Her words. "This isn't about me. It's about your choices." They circled in his mind at odd times. During traffic stops, during coffee breaks, when his son asked if he was a good guy. That night, something made him go into the garage. He found an old cardboard box near the tool bench. Inside it were papers from the academy, his first evaluations, a printed copy of his oath. He hadn't looked at it in years. He sat on the concrete floor, back against the wall, and read through it slowly, line by line. Serve without prejudice. Protect without assumption. Words he had recited once without thinking. He stayed there a long time. The next morning, he left early. Didn't say much. Just told Erica he had something to do before his shift. He drove through town, past the usual corners, the grocery store, the auto shop. Then he pulled into a small parking lot across from the church. He didn't go in, just sat there, hands on the wheel, staring at the building. He wasn't sure what he was looking for. Maybe a sign of her. Maybe a reason to believe what she said actually made a difference. He didn't find either. But when he looked to his right, a young man was walking down the sidewalk with a backpack and a hoodie, earbuds in. Kessler watched him pass, then turned away, embarrassed by the fact that his first thought had been to wonder if the boy belonged. That was the crack, the one that let the truth in. But stories like this don't end when people learn their lesson. They live on when others carry them forward. 3 weeks after that Sunday service, Gloria Hemmings sat beneath a magnolia tree in her backyard, reading a worn copy of Their Eyes Were Watching God. She turned the pages slowly, letting the words rest between her thoughts. A glass of sweet tea sat on the table beside her, sweating in the Georgia heat. It had been a calm morning, until her landline rang. She almost didn't answer, but the sound tugged her from the page, and something told her to pick up. "Hello." "Mrs. Hemmings?" a young voice asked. "I mean, Justice Hemmings?" "Yes, this is she." The girl on the other end cleared her throat. She sounded nervous. "I hope it's okay that I'm calling. My name's Marley Jenkins. I go to Northside High. I heard what you said at the church a few weeks ago. My uncle told me." Gloria shifted in her seat. "I see. It stuck with me," Marley said quickly. "I've been thinking about it ever since. I wrote something about it for school, and my teacher asked me to read it at the county assembly next month. I just wanted to say thank you for speaking up." Gloria smiled softly, even though no one could see it. "You're welcome, Marley. I'm glad it meant something to you." "It did," the girl said. "I don't think I'll ever forget it." They spoke for a few more minutes. About books. About Marley's plans after graduation, and about what it meant to be brave even when you feel small. When the call ended, Gloria sat still for a long time, one finger marking her page. Later that afternoon, she wrote Marley a letter by hand and mailed it herself. That weekend, in a small diner near the edge of town, 2 off-duty deputies were having coffee. One of them leaned in and said, "You hear about Kessler? Guy's like a ghost lately. Barely says a word." The other deputy raised an eyebrow. "He get hit with a complaint?" "Nope. That's the thing. No report filed, no reprimand. But something changed, like he saw something that rattled him." They sipped their coffee in silence. And across the booth from them, a waitress named Rhonda paused mid-order, pretending to write while she listened. She'd been there at the church that Sunday. She'd told her sister, who told her cousin, who told a friend who worked at a law firm in Macon. Each version changed a little. Some added drama, some softened the words, but the heart of it stayed the same. A woman, calm and collected, reminded a man that his badge didn't excuse his blindness, and she did it without raising her voice. Weeks passed, then months. Gloria never told the story again publicly. She didn't need to. People carried it forward, like a note tucked in a wallet, folded and unfolded, passed hand to hand without ever needing a headline. And maybe that's how the world changes, she thought. One story, told right, shared quietly, landing exactly where it needs to. She didn't speak the officer's name. She never would. Because this story wasn't about revenge or shame or punishment. It was about memory. It was about what happens when a person with power chooses not to humiliate, but to hold up a mirror. And when a person with a badge finally chooses to look into it. One morning, much later, a young officer in training asked Kessler what the most important lesson of his career had been. He looked at the floor for a long moment. Then he said, "Listen carefully to the people who speak softly. They're usually the ones worth hearing, because sometimes the loudest wake-up call doesn't come with sirens. It comes from a voice you tried to ignore.